Welcome to the Growler, a Who Dey podcast hosted by Paul Dana and other bald friends like Mo Egger, Dave Nenemetz, home of all your Bengals breaks, takes. Welcome to the Growler.
All right, welcome into the latest edition of the Growler. Paul Dana Jr. of The Athletic here. Today, joined by our good friend, Mo Egger, ESPN 1530, and more. What's up, buddy?
How we doing? What's going on? I feel like it's been a while.
It has been a while. It's been almost a month.
Wow.
We hit the off season. We're moving this. We're doing that. Vacations are happening. A lot of mixing and matching. But we hung out a bit this weekend and realized that we had to get back together because we have really important business that we need to take care of.
Yeah. When I saw you out and about, and then I saw you at a Reds game, and it was like, wow. We enjoy each other's company, I think.
Yeah.
Let's get the microphones and cameras out.
Let's get it out because there's a couple of things that we want to do. One of the last times we talked, we discussed the Ring of Honor in a conversation that I very much enjoyed. We went very in depth into the different candidates, and we'll see how that all plays out as we wait to see what happens with the Bengals and that. But it prompts what comes next, right? And that is, well, if there's a Ring of Honor, what's the dishonor? Is there a Ring of Dishonor? And it just kind of got us laughing and talking, and we thought maybe we should hash this out.
Yes.
The Square of Dishonor, because we have to have a very different shape. So we have lots of thoughts on the Bengals history and us creating a Square of Dishonor of Bengals lore and Bengals history, which I just think is going to be a very fun conversation.
Fun, and will probably make somewhat butthurt somewhere if I mention somebody they like.
Yeah. Well, of course. I mean, that's the whole point about it. I mean, that's what it is. But we're going to do it. We're going to go to the opposite side of the Ring of Honor. But first, because boy, this really is just going to be a degenerate program where we create a Ring of Dishonor, and all while just going into Bengals futures bets. This is a great time to let's assess these season long, all the futures that hang out there for all of you that are considering what you're going to do, how to play some money. You want to either root on the Bengals or you want to find some angles. I think first we dive into some of the best Bengals bets for this offseason. I have a list of a ton of them in front of me. We'll kind of make our way through them at some point, but let's start with what you like most. When you're thinking about Bengals futures, what do you see out there right now, and where would you start?
I'm going to give you my favorite first.
Okay.
Bengals to be the last team to lose plus 1,800.
Wow. I saw that one. It's feisty.
Undefeated team standing after so many weeks. Yes.
That's not bad. I mean, it's good value.
So do you think they can go to Kansas City and win? I think we all think they can. They're not going to be favored. But can they go to Kansas City and win? Like, these are all nip and tuck games. They're all close games they play against Kansas City. The Chiefs have had a very interesting offseason. They've lost home games early in the season before. We've talked before about because of who they open up with, maybe the possibility of them starting 0-2. So if you think they can go to Kansas City and win week 2, they're right now projected to be 9.5 to 10-point favorites in their other 3 games that make up the first 4, right? New England, Washington, Carolina. If they beat Kansas City, they'll be 4-0 going into the Baltimore game, which is here. If they're 5-0, last year, the last team to lose was 5-0. So I'm betting on the fact that they have they have a soft landing to start the season. They have a tough Baltimore team at home. Then after that, game 6 is at the Giants, which is, it's a road game in prime time. I don't think any of us really expect the Giants to be very good. So if you think if you're chalking up the Kansas City game as a loss, well, then don't do this. But if you think they can win it, if you think this is a coin flip game, and I do, they should be 4-0. They'll be favored week 5 against Baltimore. They're projected to be favorites week 6 against the New York Giants. Then they go to Cleveland. Obviously, that's been a little bit of a house of horrors, but the value here is insane. Plus 1,800 to be the last undefeated team. That's my favorite 2024 Bengals prop bet.
Wow, I hear what you're saying, and certainly the confidence that you would get if you're betting on the Kansas City win, if you're betting on that happening, well, think of the confidence that would ensue from that win. Obviously, Joe Burrow must be looking pretty good, you would have to assume. Obviously, the defense is probably feeling decent about itself with whatever they had to do to beat Patrick Mahomes in Kansas City at Arrowhead. So I hear you. I think you're right. For value, I see your angle here. Here's one connected to that I had in the same list. There's a few sort of Bengals team bets just to run through them. The over-unders at 10.5. I think you probably feel it's a good number. It's a good, but when you consider all that went wrong last year and they won 9, I don't think you're ever scared by 10.5 with this team. Making the playoffs is currently minus 240. Bengals going undefeated. If you're here for it, right? You're here to just say, this is the year, man. They're going to do it all. You're getting 130 to 1. So that in mind, if you want to play the value odds play, you have the last remaining undefeated. There's one more on that list that stood out to me, and it is one that I'm going with. And it's a little bit against my better judgment, but I can't get past the value. The Bengals score 1 touchdown and field goal at least in every game.
Ooh.
5 to 1.
Oh, man.
Now they've had these clunkers. We've seen a number of them for different reasons. But for 45 to 1,
man,
they do a lot of settling for. You got Evan's range. You got Evan McPherson, who never missed last year on a kick inside 49. You feel like you can hit those. They have had a history of having to settle for some field goals. You've got Burrow. You've got a team that should score a bunch of points. I at 45 to 1, I'm here for it. That was a fun value that I found on BetMGM where I was like, all right, I'm interested. I'll play this game.
Yeah, I love that. 45 to 1.
45 to 1 on 1 touchdown and 1 field goal in every game. Now you run into the 28 to 20 win where they score 4 touchdowns and don't kick is probably going to do you in. But just for value's sake, I found I was having some fun and intrigued by that one.
Yeah, but I mean, it's also a reflection of some confidence in the kicker, where maybe you get the cheap 3 points at the end of the half, or like the offense is cooking, but they just run out of time, and so they bring him out there. Evan makes a 58-yarder that other kickers can't make. Boom, there's your field goal. Yeah, 45 to 1. Yeah, 45 to 1 is awesome.
Do you have anything in Burrow world? There's so many Burrow props and sides and different things you can do. What do you have there? Anything?
So to me, the Burrow thing is, if you're looking at statistically, I haven't fleshed this out. And let's be honest, many books don't have their players' season statistical futures numbers out yet. So this might be a conversation to have as we get closer to the season, but you can buy awards. So I buy Burrow to be MVP every year because he's going to win one at some point. Right? Do you think the Bengals are going to be good? So if you're going to say, yeah, man, I'm going over the 11.5, I'm going over the 10.5, that means you think the Bengals are going to be good. If the Bengals are good, Burrow's going to be the main reason why. He's been a finalist before. At some point, he's going to win one. So, I mean, to me, this is just about, I'm going to make the wager every year, knowing it's going to hit, or feeling good that it's going to hit at some point, and hopefully it hits sooner rather than later, which most of us think it will. So I go Burrow MVP plus 1,000. But if he's the MVP, then how is he not also the comeback player of the year? Which right now, Aaron Rodgers is the odds-on favorite. Aaron Rodgers is old. Joe Burrow is not. Joe Burrow is the second best odds, I think, if my handwriting is correct, plus 250. Well, if he's going to be the MVP, and, Flacco won it last year based on performance, I know it's been sort of emphasized, here's what you should consider. A lot of people were upset that Damar Hamlin didn't win it. Thank God there's no story like that hovering over the league. It's going to be a guy coming off an injury. I also think, for what it's worth, Nick Chubb is really interesting here because the odds are like plus 1,300. But if Burrow's going to be that good and he's going to be put up MVP caliber numbers and maybe at least be a finalist, then he's got a damn good chance to be the comeback player of the year, which he's won before. Why can't he win it again? Burrow, CPOY plus 250, and then the obligatory throw money on him being MVP because he's going to be it at some point.
Yeah. I have one that I loved in connection with that. And so if you're doing at some point he's going to win one, this could be the year just as much as any. And you're going to go Bengals team of destiny. You've already got money on them to go 17-0. So you're saying, all right, keep going, right? You're New Orleans, it makes too much sense. Jamar, Burrow, like all of it, you're going to go all the way. Burrow MVP and Super Bowl winner combo you can get at 40-1 right now.
Oh.
How many times you see these guys, if he's having an MVP season, think about how much you love Burrow as the one guy who could take out Mahomes and the Chiefs in the playoffs. And now, granted, you're going deep. I mean, you're going all the way to Super Bowl winner. And Lord knows if anybody on this planet has regretted comments about the Bengals winning the Super Bowl, it's me taking them back from last year. But I feel like that combination at 40-1 is, again, maybe you're seeing why I don't gamble all that often. All my bets are ending up in the 40-1 long shots. Yeah. But again, value, if you're betting on there's a chance, right? And if he's the MVP, there's a chance this could be the year for them. I like that as a combination, and you can take any individual versions of that. But I like that as a combination.
I do too. And then speaking of combinations, you mentioned the Bengals, the number right now is 10.5. So can they be 2 games better than last year if Joe Burrow plays the overwhelming majority of 17 games? And in those games that he plays, is he healthy? With a schedule that's the 4th place schedule, I'm going to say, yeah, I'll go over 10.5. I'm going to go Baltimore under 11.5. Now, they've obviously made some pretty big additions, but what was the knock on? Why did people sit on their hands about Baltimore last year? Don't think Lamar can stay healthy. He did. Are we trusting that's going to happen 2 straight years? They lost a lot of dudes, man. I mean,
a lot of dudes and coaches.
Yeah, like including Geno Stone coming to Cincinnati, like they lost a lot of guys. They add Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry's terrific. Is he as terrific at this stage of his career? 1st place schedule, not betting on Lamar getting through another season healthy. I'm going to go under there. Well, then if you're going to do that, if you think the Bengals are going to go over 10.5, Baltimore's going to go under 11.5. All right, that means Baltimore wins 11, Bengals win 11. Can Cincinnati get the tiebreaker? Yeah. Let's bet on yes, plus 170 to win the AFC North. So let's figure out a way to combine those 3. I love those. I like the Bengals to go over. I like Baltimore to go under. And I don't, I know it's the Steelers who Mike Tomlin's never had a losing season. Put that in one of your stories. Yeah,
I'll do.
And
at least you didn't call it one of my little articles. I always appreciate it.
And like, the Browns are fascinating, but we're still kind of wondering the same thing we were a year ago. Is Deshaun Watson good anymore? I know Joe Burrow is. If he stays healthy, I've got him winning over 10.5. If they do that, they win the division. They can't be as bad against the AFC North this coming season as they were last year. So let's go ahead and do that. Plus odds with an MVP caliber quarterback, plus 170 to win the AFC North. I'll take it.
All right. Yeah. The win the AFC North, I have found them by finish. So 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, which one you can go with. Similar, plus they're in that plus 170, plus 175 for both 1st and 2nd, depending on where you get them. 3rd, I see at plus 260 and 4th at plus 800. If you were a masochist and you would say, yeah, I don't know what's going to happen with Burrow. I'm not so sure about that. Maybe you see value in plus 800, which is about as long of odds as you'll find in the AFC North and speaks to the division. Every team has something that looks kind of like this for their odds in some combination, where there's nothing that is really big value long shots anywhere. Anything can happen in this division. And maybe that's why you would lean into the big value of plus 800. So I'm not touching the AFC North. I just think it's too much of a wild card to touch any finish in there, and even believing in Burrow. And I hear you on the Baltimore thing. I think, you're betting on year 2 of Todd Monken and Lamar being something that can really take off. And I think that's true.
Mhm.
But God, there's so much else that's missing that you just don't know that you can count on now, and Mike McD on defense being number one of those. For me, like,
Mhm.
that dude revolutionized stuff for them and really turned them back into that group they were supposed to be. And they lost the top lieutenant for him. They have like a 29. How old is Zach Orr? He was just playing. And he's their DC now. You don't think there's going to be growing pains there? We had this conversation with the Eagles last year
Mhm.
about losing coordinators and the value of that. And it damn near, got Nick Sirianni fired coming off of a Super Bowl. It's hard, man, when you lose
Mhm.
coordinators. And people are probably saying that about the Bengals too. How are they going to react to Callahan? But I think this is like, they kept their top lieutenant and the Ravens didn't. And I think that's a big difference here as much as anything. Brian Callahan tips his hat. Thank you. I got him. And that, I think that's part of it though. And,
Mhm.
and so that's why the AFC North to me is just, it's too crazy. I'm not touching it. One thing I am touching in the AFC North though,
Mhm.
week 7, the Browns are +1 at home against the Bengals. Give me the Browns. I feel like this is going to go on forever until I see otherwise, that the Bengals can go to Cleveland and play even a competent game at this point. I don't understand it. It makes no sense. The Browns are somehow getting, where I saw at least, getting one in a place that they've just absolutely decimated the Bengals. Give me week 7 Browns +1. I'm going individual game bet on there too.
And that's with them going in undefeated,
Of
and
course,
maybe my prop hanging in the
too
balance, right?
too high on their horse potentially. Yeah,
Maybe
at that
my
point.
prop hanging in the balance. All right. So
Anything else you really like?
one statistical prop that I did like, and you probably have to do some shopping around for this. T. Higgins total receiving yards in the 2024 season, over 875.5.
Mm-hmm.
Now, last year, he obviously went under because he only played in 12 games. Every other year, he's gone over this. He has sailed over this. So, obviously, there is the Jamar Chase factor. You could obviously buy, I think Jamar, the number is at like 1,200.
1,200.
But I get an extraordinarily motivated T. Higgins who's got to prove I can stay healthy and I can be productive because I want to get paid. A track record of hitting this number and hitting it with ease, possibly the best offensive line Joe Burrow has ever played behind. And yes, a lot of different weapons, but still, T. Higgins has to have 876 yards receiving. If he plays 16 to 17 games, I think he does that. His yards per game average over the course of his career is 63.5. That's 63.5. So let's do. I'm doing this math on the fly. I love math.
I love it.
If he plays 15 games and he averages 63.5 yards per game, that's 952.5 yards. Over. So
you're betting on health with T. Higgins right now.
I am.
It's such a part of the question with him, even though
No
he's
doubt.
played. You have had, now he's started 14 games, and then last year started 11. Every year, and so you're right. I mean, he has surpassed those numbers, but it is the one thing that you worry about.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the other side of that. Can I devil's advocate that?
Oh, please. Yeah, sure. Here's
No,
smart.
No. Well, not really. It's again my dumb strategy of trying to get the biggest number and the highest value in these bets. And that is, I think there's 2 things you could combine that would excite me.
Okay.
And that is, you've got this Jamar Chase receiving yards leader prop out there at 12-1. He's currently tied for 4th amongst those ranked there. There's a chance that everything that we've talked about this offseason and them adding all of these weapons and position versatility was with the sole purpose number 1 of augmenting Jamar Chase. And if that happens and this turns into his year and he is the receiving yards leader, hell, go ahead and throw the award for offensive player of the year in there and combine that. I would be willing to parlay the Chase receiving yards leader in the NFL with a Higgins under
Ooh,
because that if they are really playing to Jamar's strength more and really targeting more, it probably means Higgins missed a few games because they had to focus on Jamar a little bit more, which has happened. And there's a chance that it's just a part of the evolution of the offense a little bit to feature Jamar more. If you're saying that he's going to get that, you combine those two, and I think you're taking advantage of a one idea that this thing happens. I don't know that it's going to go that way necessarily. There's a chance that adding all these weapons and the versatility is strictly just going to make everybody better. But I think that you could consider putting Higgins under with a Chase domination season.
Yeah, because the Chase domination comes at the expense of T. Higgins.
Right. So
Right.
so why not put the and the chance
Right.
of that's exactly what happens. I mean, I do think they can be connected. So
All right.
You have any more? One last good one?
One last good one. Well, I don't even know if it's good, but because I'm very optimistic here, right? So I've got to bet against somebody. Zach Moss, total rushing yards, 725. He's gone over this number once. It was just last year. So they're going to throw the ball a billion times. They want to be a throwing team. They have another running back. I don't think it's going to be an awesome run blocking offensive line. I like the Zach Moss acquisition, but if I've got to bet against somebody, he could have 724 yards, fit in nicely, hit some explosive plays, and he hits the under here. So I think they're going to throw the hell out of it. Burrow puts up MVP numbers. He's the comeback player of the year. Your Jamar Chase thing may hit. I'm betting on T. Higgins. They could do 1,000 things throwing the football. That's got to come at the expense of somebody running the ball. Why not a guy who has gone over this total exactly one time?
Yeah,
Zach
I'm
Moss,
with you.
under 725.5.
I think that's a good bet. I'm here for Chase Brown overs.
Right.
Because I think there's a really good chance that he becomes a real guy this year, especially in the way that they want to do their offense. I'll end it with one wild one that I want to throw out there. If we're getting wild and just feeling silly this time of year, how about Bengals over Packers in the Super Bowl as my Super Bowl pick, 120-1, or just get the matchup of Bengals versus Packers at 70-1 right now specifically. I like what the Packers are doing. I like Jordan Love and his trajectory and all those young receivers. I like Matt LaFleur as a coach. I think they've got things rolling over there. If you're going to do it and if you want to have two teams to root for all year and you want Bengals Packers 120-1 with the Bengals win 71 for the matchup, that's my wild swing. If that's where a direction that you want to go, I like that.
Does that mean you're going to write the preseason prognostication where you predict them to win the Super Bowl again this year?
No, never again.
Okay.
Never again. I'm just saying, people are here probably wanting to do something like that, and I'm trying to push that in that direction. Let's get to more important things.
Okay.
That was a pretty optimistic segment. A lot of talk about the Bengals and the Super Bowl and MVPs. How about we get into dishonor? Okay. Let's flip side. Let's even ourselves out. So we talked about it, the Ring of Honor, all that's going on. We had a nice long debate, and it was brought up about, well, what about the opposite? So the creation of a square, are we going square or do we think oval? It's kind of a jacked up ring. I think square. Rectangle. What's the worst shape? Trapezoid?
The opposite of a ring is a square, right?
Yeah. So we go square. That's fine. I just want to make sure we're comfortable with square. And boy, if we're taking this much time debating the shape, we've got
The question is where do we put this? Do we like we used to talk about somebody should build a Bengals Ring of Honor room? Well, they don't have to do that now. Are we going to create a physical structure that people could go visit?
Yeah, I got this.
To learn about the Bengals Ring of or Square of Dishonor?
I know exactly where it goes.
Okay.
It goes where the old spinny field was. It's over there, which is like a construct. I don't even know what it is now, but you just take some weird, maybe it's a busted parking lot or something, and it's just a little square with some plaques that no one takes care of and never get cleaned up. They just fall into disrepair as it goes on, right where old spinny field was. And I think you've got to have a ceremony for this too, right? Whenever you do it, there's got to be some kind of a ceremony. I have one thing for you that I think you'll appreciate. You know who hosts this ceremony?
Who?
Don Criqui and Steve Tasker. the absolute linchpin of the 90s Bengals TV broadcasts, 1 o'clock special, Riverfront Stadium.
Voices of the Bengals.
Voices of Don Criqui and Steve Tasker. I think they're your hosts. It's blacked out locally, of course.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, or it was like Craig Bolerjack and Beasley Reese. We got a lot of those.
We got backups.
We got backups. We got a lot of Beasley Reese back in the day. Sure. Yeah.
So the other thing is, what does someone who gets inducted into the Square of Dishonor, what do they get? Like now they put on that suit with the Bengal stripes inside. It's real sweet looking. Love that. I think it's one of my favorite things about what they do. But I think in this case, I think you get one of those towels that were too small that Boomer and them complained about, right? And you just have to wear it like around, like doesn't quite fit. They used to complain about, yeah. And then you have to drink some of those Gatorades that Jonathan Joseph stole.
That or like if you remember back in the day, sort of before the NFL standardized all the gear, and then before we had like cool companies like Cincy Shirts, etc., create cool Bengals gear. If you were a Bengals fan during a certain time, there was never any cool looking gear, which meant you had to talk yourself into something looking cool that really wasn't. I bought a lot of really ugly Bengals sweatshirts in the 90s. How about one of those?
Yeah. One of the just awful.
Yeah.
Or there was one, they did a giveaway one time with for season ticket holders that bought the seat license, all the thing. It was just like a really kind of a rough white shirt that just had their original logo right here in the corner, and that was it. Like that was thanks for spending all this money on the seat license and season tickets and the whole nine. Here's kind of a weird looking white t-shirt, maybe that's it. Maybe that's what it was.
Or one of those hats that they gave away that just had that Paul Brown Stadium logo on it.
Yeah. That's the Mike Brown hat now. That's what Mike wears that a lot.
Well,
yeah. Let's get into the actual induction criteria, okay? Because I think we divide it into 3 pieces.
Okay.
Because this is important. There's a lot of different ways you can dishonor. I think injuries are hard. Like you're gonna hear about Kajana Carter and guys. I'm not gonna hold injury against somebody. I think we can have injury exceptions where you bring it up, but I'm not gonna hold. That's really unfair. But I think 33% should just be your on-field performance relative to expectations. Somebody who wasn't supposed to be anybody coming in and committing a bunch of penalties, nobody cares. Expectations were high. You fell far short of them. That's dishonorable, right? That's certainly a part of it. I think another 33% should be personal conduct.
Yes.
Just personal conduct. Okay? On, off, anything. Absolutely. The way you conducted yourself. That's a long list there. So then I think the other part is sort of your dishonorable legacy or overall impact of how your dishonor changed the shape of things going forward.
Yeah.
So a general impact of the dishonor going forward, I think, is the other 3rd percent of our criteria. Are you okay with this?
Yeah. Is that sort of where you fold likability into the conversation?
Yeah, that's probably part of it.
Okay. All right. Very good.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's something where if what they did changed the course of a team that could have been something or won the Super Bowl or the way they were viewed nationally or things like that, I think that's part of the dishonor. Okay, so we've established where it's going to go.
Yeah.
We've talked about the criteria of who gets in. The towels are hanging in the back and waiting to be wrapped around. Let's go, induction class, the original of 4. Let's try to get to 4.
Oh, okay.
And
because I have on my original list here, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 players, and then I have a group. But go ahead.
Yeah, I have 8 players in a group as well. I wonder how similar our list is.
Incredible. Very good.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll start off. Give me your strongest candidate off the top.
All right. So understand that my criteria was everything you just outlined, but also like they had to mean something to me.
Okay.
And so the author of, I think, the single worst moment in Bengals regular season history, the person who I believe is most directly responsible for it, Gus Frerotte.
Oh,
First play of the 2002 season, Bengals get a delay of game.
Yeah.
And what I remember most about it, I think I've talked about this on your podcast, is my dad, God rest his soul, the first play of the first game of the season against the Chargers, him standing up and yelling. And my old man never was that fan who was yelling profanities, but essentially screaming like, you've had 9 months to call that play. You've had 9 months. If you're the quarterback of a team that can't get a playoff in time in the first game of the season, Gus Farragut could have taken the Bengals to 12 Super Bowls. He did not. He once had the shovel pass interception against the Cleveland Browns, I think it was. But if you were the quarterback of a team that can't get a playoff in the first game of the season, automatic Square of Dishonor induction.
Yeah, that's just it. When you have a singular moment, I think that I have one name on this list that is a singular moment, one-timer offense. And I don't even know if he would make my induction class. But while we're talking about singular one moments, boy, Stanley Wilson. One time. And I feel it's his story is sad and there's so much to it. But what could have been, the legacy impact. It's been talked about what could have been had Stanley Wilson played the night before the Super Bowl, to have the fall off, the impact it left on everybody. Just mind-blowing to hear that happened. Stanley Wilson would be somebody I would consider in the one-timer category, in terms of that 33% of the legacy impact of the mistake or the dishonor plays in there, which is just hard to get past. Because I mean, you say, man, that team could have won the Super Bowl with Stanley Wilson. It's a one of many woulda, coulda, shouldas with that one, but I'd have to consider it in the one-timer club.
A career-defining episode that didn't take place, the night before Game 4, right? It took place the night before the Super Bowl, and I'm sure you've done this. You talk to or listen to any player from that team, they will talk about the reverberating effect that it had mentally, emotionally, and then just in terms of the game itself. It's hard to not have this conversation. It's hard to have this conversation and not mention the name Stanley Wilson, no doubt.
Yeah. All right. Do you have another one?
Carl Pickens. Because here's the thing. I was thinking about this. Who is the best player the Bengals have ever had who no one likes?
Yeah.
Right? Part of it is he played on bad teams. Part of it is I literally have never heard anybody say, yeah, Carl Pickens is okay. Whether it's media members, ex-teammates, fans, like in this day and age where we love vintage jerseys, has anybody seen a Carl Pickens number 81?
No.
Right? No.
So and he could play. And on the field, the dude could ball. Yeah.
Terrific. That's the thing about this, right? It's one thing if you're totally unlikable and you suck. Part of that unlikability is the fact that you suck. This guy was good. I mean, this guy, I always talk about how much I love Jeff Blake and is my second favorite all-time Bengal. I love Jeff Blake, and yet the guy he threw most passes to universally detested, including by me. And I've never met the man. I've never talked with him. It's hard to be that good for that long and that unpopular. And so because of that incredible achievement, so to speak, he is at least worthy of nominating for the Square of Dishonor.
The Square of Dishonor. Yeah, it's a good nomination. I have one that I just want to say that it's so obvious. It should almost be named after this person. And it's so bad that I don't even want to talk about it. But I mean, Nate Webster's in Wikipedia. What happened? Awful. Went to prison. All of it. You don't get worse than that. A guy who showed up and was expected to be a major player, and it goes that direction. And we just have to mention that Nate Webster is in the Square of Dishonor. Here's one more about that I want to say. It's hard to talk about injuries, right? Can we talk about Antonio Bryant? I mean, the $9 million practice, the knee that was not anyway. This isn't really his fault. He got his money. Good for him.
Yeah.
It's more of a kind of a reflection on the Bengals. I guess maybe you would take whoever decided on that or checked him medically, whatever we're going to say, where everyone was like, yikes, his knee was not right. And I watched the man limp through that practice to collect his $9 million that he could have gotten there. And the fact that that was it, that was the end, there's just dishonor in that entire situation. So I don't know who goes in or what it's a picture of, but I think that's a part of it. I know injury isn't supposed to be a part of it. There's just a lot happening there that I think needs to be noted.
That would be an interesting, like, oral history. History of Antonio Bryant's $9 million practice.
Yeah.
To me, he's one of my personal heroes. Wait a minute. So I just have to go to practice this one time?
One time I got to sneak onto the field? All right.
Get $9 million? Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Like, I can't hate on him. I can't hate on him for that. So there's obviously been a lot of bad Bengals draft picks or picks that didn't work out. And there have been Bengals draft picks who back in the day would hold out. I don't recall a combination of holdout saga, poor performance, and sheer unlikability. A bigger combination of that than Achilles Smith. Now,
yeah,
I have since interviewed Achilles Smith, and he was awesome. And has taken responsibility for how he behaved, has taken responsibility for why his career never really took off, and good for him. That doesn't absolve you of what you did. And the Square of Dishonor is a reflection of what you did while you were here. Plus, this was early in my radio career. He would have to go on the air with Jim Scott like every Thursday morning. In the first 10 weeks, he missed the phone call 8 times and then got an on-air dressing down from the nicest man of all time, Jim Scott. So, Achilles Smith,
yeah,
I am glad that he has turned his life around. Awesome. I think it's awesome that he has taken responsibility for why it didn't work out, but it didn't work out. And he's the main reason why. Square of Dishonor.
And when you get into, again, legacy, impact, the belief in Achilles Smith caused them to not take the Saints trade.
Yeah.
And, and when you consider that as a part of it, which isn't Achilles' fault, but that decision being also put onto his shoulders, that's a hard one to pass on. I would suggest, you mentioned a group. I have a group.
Okay.
Every quarterback not named Jeff Blake or Boomer Esiason that took a snap for the Bengals between like 1992 and 2002. Okay. Like I am willing to go every single one of them into a group. We can get Gus in there. You give him a wing of the square. We can give him a whole
Paul Justin, Neil O'Donnell.
You name it. Scott Mitchell,
Eric
you got
Kressler.
Gus Klingler. I mean, all of these, I feel like they just get a group award from the impact of so many not getting it done that caused them to have, the worst decade potentially in the history of professional sports.
All right, so I have one that is maybe similar, but perhaps a little bit more recent. The collection of old linebackers that they would sign every single year from like 2012 through 2017, where every year it's like, they signed Carlos Dansby, man. That would be cool if it was 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Or, hey, they got James Harrison, and they're going to try to make a cover linebacker? Like,
yeah.
Hip. Or, hey, they got AJ Hawk. Like, to do what? Is he going to coach? Or Preston Brown led the league in tackles. Okay. Big deal. So there was this run where every single year I would at least try to talk myself into old linebacker who used to be good, looking for one more paycheck, would sign with the team and then do absolutely nothing. Like if you remember with James Harrison, they're like, well, what we're going to have him do is block field goals and extra points. And like, and is he also going to like rush after the quarterback? Oh, no, not. So we have James Harrison to block kicks. Okay.
Yeah.
So perhaps through no fault of these individual players, I'm lumping them together. Maybe that's like the separate wing, like old linebackers, Square of Dishonor, where you kind of go and visit. Oh yeah, there's Carlos Dansby. There he is. And I'm probably leaving some people out, but man, it felt like for a while there was one every single year.
I think you're going to have the most controversial discussion here.
Okay.
With two guys that are intertwined and connected. The one, because there is a segment, a large segment, a vocal segment of Bengals fandom that still to this day really loves and reveres these two players. And there is a large segment that is on the exact opposite side of the spectrum.
Mm-hmm.
And that is Adam Jones and Vontaze Burfict. Okay.
Yes.
So to me, this is the one that would like fill the talk shows, right? This is the one that would divide the room of, okay, how do you feel about these guys? Now, Adam had his run-ins off the field.
Right.
Okay. And there was lots of stuff that went on there. Okay. You know, police officers, fights, casinos, all the stuff. Okay. That happened. Well documented, again, Wikipedia. Right. And then you had Tez with all the bad acting off the field or on the field, and off the field, whatever. Not a great person necessarily, certainly in dealings that I witnessed or that you saw in general, but never anything unlawful.
Right.
Like, you know, so you didn't have any of that, but so divisive and really the face of the criticism of those very good teams that were undisciplined and made and you know, self-destructed, with the meltdown at Paul Brown being the signature moment that everybody remembers, them two being at the center of it. Where do you fall on how these should be would be handled now under your watch?
I wrote down Adam Jones.
Yeah.
I did not write down Vontaze Burfict because on the conversation for me is limited to what happened on the field. And on the field, there was a lot of really good.
Yeah.
I mean, he's maybe the best linebacker the Bengals have had in my lifetime.
Yeah.
Just in terms of ability, instinct, raw talent, impact. Now there's a huge what if there. What if all he did was play really hard-nosed football? What does that look like? It's probably awesome, and so it's frustrating. And he is at the epicenter of the biggest meltdown in franchise history, which is that 2015 Steelers game. But because his indiscretions were at least loosely under the umbrella of football, I don't put him here. Adam Jones, I do. For one simple reason. He got arrested and this is a fact. He got arrested for one of his many incidents, and he is recorded saying to a police officer, quote, "I hope you die." That's hard to look past. And I hate to go down a serious path here, but I remember when it happened, it wasn't all that long after Sonny Kim had gotten murdered, a police officer here in Cincinnati in 2015. And I just thought the lack of sensitivity and the lack of seriousness that Marvin Lewis, who you could say a lot of great things about, the lack of seriousness that Marvin Lewis applied to the situation, I thought was sobering. And I wrote a blog piece about Adam Jones and just said, I'm now done with the story. I'm now done with hearing about how, well, he's misunderstood and he's got this beautiful mind. And yeah, he does some really, really, you don't get to have your sins wiped away because you do a whole bunch of awesome things. And so, unfortunately, there was just this almost unending, and frankly continues to this day, unending series of things where you're like, dude, what are you doing? And as a football player, he did some really awesome things here, man. He's the best return man I've ever watched the Bengals have. He was a part of this franchise's turnaround from when he got here in 2010 to him being a part of 5 teams that made the postseason. But the off-field stuff was so repetitive and so dark. And it frustrates me to this day that people just shrug their shoulders because this is a guy. I hope he figures it out. I hope he has figured it out. But when he was a Bengal here, I got tired of talking about all the crappy stuff he did. And the one that stands out to me most is when during an incident, he said to a police officer, "I hope you die." That is automatic. Square of Dishonor inclusion as far as I'm concerned.
As someone who was tasked with having to watch all however many minutes of that video and keep track of how many times every one of those words was said, of which was many, many. Yeah, it was as you're right, with the day that the story sort of ended there, in a lot of ways. So I'm with you on that. I think, again, it's personal conduct, and you can't get past that part of it. All right, I think we've got a pretty all-inclusive group here.
I got one more.
You got one. Oh, I have one more too, but I want to sneak Cedric Ogbuehi into the conversation, because nobody signifies things going wrong on the offensive line and the transition away from Andrew Whitworth and all of that. A guy who had all the physical tools and just never really cared enough. Nice enough guy. Nothing. He doesn't hit that 33% off field, but on field and legacy of that failure and bad. I think he needs to be mentioned. He's not getting in the first class.
Yeah,
but he's down the line.
Yeah, like I jotted down the name Oliver Gibson because he once got called for taunting while playing for the 2002 Bengals in a game against Atlanta that they lost like 37-3. And I remember the next day asking my coworkers, like, if you play for the Bengals, how do you get flagged for taunting?
Yeah.
But that's probably not the most unforgivable indiscretion. Tremaine Mack, marvelously talented player, probably has a record, and maybe the rule change is going to change this, probably has a record that's never going to be broken. Most career kick returns in Bengals history, too. But fell asleep on the Brent Spence Bridge, if I can recall, and seemed to never stop getting out of trouble.
Mark Walton, who never even made an impact.
Mark Walton.
So he doesn't hit the relevancy level because he just never even got a chance to really get started, but all kinds of crimes. But that's just so you didn't really get to play. I'm not going to put him in there, but just worth a mention.
But, and this is maybe somewhat personal for me, Sam Adams. Sam Adams was acquired by the Bengals to fill the middle. You know, he'd had a very good run in Baltimore. And was he a bad player in Cincinnati? I don't know. I don't really remember much about him as a player in Cincinnati. I don't really recall him being good. But if you recall, he gave our city a gift. It was the Arena Football League 2 franchise known as the Cincinnati Jungle Cats.
Oh, man.
So for those who don't remember, the Cincinnati Jungle Cats started play in 2007. They stopped play at the end of the 2007 season. They won one game. Their first game, they took the field, and they didn't have enough helmets. So the players, like coming off the field, would have to take their helmet and give it to a guy coming in. The helmets didn't have decals because nobody ordered them. People bought season tickets to this. And we had a guy, I was just starting my on-air career. We had a guy who worked for us, who was he was big into Sam Adams. So like constantly he's like, bro, this is going to be different, man. This is going to be like major league, arena league football. Sam Adams is involved. Okay, cool. And I bought in enough that I went to the first game. First of all, they lost, I think legitimately 99-7. I'm perhaps only slightly exaggerating here. In the middle of all that, they conned us. Sam cons the radio station into carrying these stupid games. So we carried the games, and they needed people to help get the games on the air. And so one of the games they needed somebody. They asked me. I said, "Yeah, I'll do it." And they were going to pay me, the Jungle Cats, $350 to do this game. I did it. It is 17 years later. Sam, I'm still waiting for my money. So, forgettable player, bad team owner, awful franchise, delinquent and paying me cash that with interest, I don't know what $350 is in 2024, but I want my money. And since I'm never going to get it, my retribution is you go into the Bengals Square of Dishonor.
Oh, I like when it gets personal, which if there's anything that this is, it's obviously personal. I mean, this is what else do you have? What else do you have other than a fictional thing that we make up? All right. So I feel like when Don Criqui and Steve Tasker come to town and we go over to where spinny field, used to be, and the kids on the bus used to yell, "You suck," as they drove by. You bring the towels out, and I think we've got a few that Nate Webster is getting in.
Mm-hmm.
I think we go with the quarterback group that includes Gus and Achille, and it literally just has a bunch of faces on the plaque, and it says every quarterback that took a snap from 92 to 2002 that's not named Jeff Blake or Boomer Esiason. Okay, so we've got that group as our second ones in. I think Stanley Wilson is the one-timer legacy.
It's tough.
It's hard.
Yeah, that's tough.
Adam Jones or your personal attack on Sam Adams is where I end up with the last one. And if you want to get personal, you can. But the dishonor, you can go whatever direction you'd want to on that one.
Well, and I mean,
it's your axe to grind.
It's
your 350.
Yeah, the debt's forgiven.
The debt's forgiven.
Boy, if we do one day like my axe to grind Ring of Honor, that'd be fun.
Yeah.
So we're not going to put in Carl Pickens?
He was really good when he played.
Yeah.
And it's not unlawful. I mean, again, I think he hits 33% really well. Yeah. But I think he leaves 66% out there.
Okay. He did play well. He didn't get in any, that I recall, any off-field issues.
I don't remember any off-field. So I think it's just, and I don't have any personal, I've heard, but I don't have any personal.
I've heard. He did catch the fake spike pass from Neil O'Donnell against the Steelers in 1998, which was cool.
So there's that. So
All it's right. Adam or Sam?
Adam or Sam, your personal 350 versus Adam Jones with the police officer at all.
You know what? I feel like just mentioning that was cathartic for me.
Yeah.
To be able to share that with an audience was enough. So we'll go Adam Jones.
All right. There's our group. The Square of Dishonor. Look for it coming to the old Spinny Field site before too long. I think this whole thing was cathartic. It's just nice. It's just nice to go to the weird place. You know, it's June. It's June, and there's a lot of positivity and optimism.
Sure.
We got to balance ourselves out. Let's enjoy.
Question.
I always say this as someone who grew up here, and the formative years were based around the 90s Bengals. There's nothing I really enjoy more than wallowing in the misery. You know, it's been so uncomfortable in recent years with everything's going well off the field and on the field, and everybody likes the team. It's been very uncomfortable from someone who came around in the 90s and saw what it can be and how that misery brings people together. So I think that it's nice that we can at least scratch that itch once here on June 24th while everyone's basking in the optimism.
Yeah, it's easier to do now, right? I mean, now the struggles of last season notwithstanding, like everybody's excited about the Bengals and optimistic and feeling good and appreciative of what they've done in recent years, that it's sort of nice to go back in time and remind folks that there was a large swath of time where things were kind of different.
Yeah, I hope the new generation Burrow fan can appreciate this. All right, thanks to everybody for listening. Thanks, Mo, for sharing so much of your time and diving deep into this absurdity. Get your crazy bets in if you want to, and you can also catch Mo 3 to 6 ESPN 1530 every day. Always look forward to that, and we'll be back soon. Who Dey Light will be back later this week, so make sure you come check that. Send your questions in to myself and to Mark at the Growler Podcast at gmail.com. All right. Thanks everybody for listening. Have a good one, everybody.